Welcome to Celtic State of Mind. I'm John Dykes, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Mr. Harald Brattbakk. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
It's a real pleasure to have you here, Harald. How are things over in Norway with regards to this lockdown at the moment?
Well, it's basically much the same as everywhere. A little bit more. Well, it's reduced. Everything is reduced. I mean, people are not working as much. But I mean, we're slowly coming back to, I would say, a normal lifestyle. And I think next week the kids can start playing football again, and they can be in contact with each other. So things are progressing quite good. But I mean, it's been a strange 10 weeks. I must say that.
Absolutely, Harald. Now, obviously, there are some clear highlights of your Celtic career that we're going to cover, but I was looking at your career earlier, and when you started making a name for yourself in Norway, I was wondering, did you ever come up against a certain Ronny Deila when you were playing for your first couple of clubs in Norway?
Yes, I did. I'm not quite sure how old Ronny is, but he's a few years younger than me, but I definitely played against him with several clubs. So obviously I know him as a player, but I also know that he's been pursuing his manager career as well. But yes, I do remember him, of course.
When your countryman Ronny came over as manager of Celtic, a massive job for Ronny, and obviously he was part of the 9 in a row. Harald, did you ever have any discussions with him, being an ex-Celt yourself?
No, not apart from just well, I saw him, of course, when I came over because I was handing out the trophy. That must have been 3 years ago, I think, and it was it was good. I really enjoyed it, but we didn't talk much of his job. I mean, that's I haven't been able to follow the team as closely as I should, so I left that to him, of course.
Sure. Now, when you started scoring goals and you were prolific at Bodo Glimt and your second spell at Rosenborg, for a young player in Norway, Harald, at that time, was it a natural progression maybe to move to British football or elsewhere in Europe?
For me, it felt like a natural move to go somewhere else. Ending up with Celtic was not something I had planned for a long while, because obviously there was other interest as well from other clubs. But in the end, it was Celtic that came up with the highest interest, I would say, and they obviously had some talks with the club, and the transfer went through in December in '97, if I don't remember too much.
Now, again, your impressive Champions League record at Rosenborg, Harald. You were scoring goals against AC Milan in the San Siro. You were scoring against Real Madrid. What kind of clubs were showing interest in you at the time that Celtic came calling?
There was clubs in Greece, there were clubs in Italy, and there were clubs in England, and obviously Celtic as well. But I think that one of the reasons I chose Celtic was because they really showed interest in me, and that also was the reason why they came here to do negotiations with Rosenborg. So for me, there was also other clubs during that summer. I started talking to my agent in the summer of '97 to look for possibilities to move on, and the lucky choice was Celtic in December.
Yeah, absolutely. And we pride ourselves, Harald, as you know now, having been part of the club, on our European pedigree, How much did you know about Celtic prior to coming over to Scotland?
I knew very little, I must say. I knew that there was a 2-horse race, of course, in Scotland, which it has been for many, many years. And the occasional Hearts and the occasional Aberdeen or the occasional Hibs would mingle into the top 3-4 clubs. But obviously, I knew that the Old Firm was something that I would be looking forward to. And we played the first game on the 2nd of January in '98?
Yes.
And it was, I think from that moment I started to realize how big the fight has been between the two clubs in the same city for many, many, many years. And I also, after a while, I understood that this is definitely the year that we were going to stop them from making 10 in a row. So there was so much I learned from coming to Celtic and coming to Glasgow, which I didn't know from before. So for me, it was a quite new and exciting experience.
You mentioned the game there against Rangers. It was a famous victory, 2-0, and a very important win as we went on to win the league, Harald. Was that the game where it was your first start and you gave Richard Gough 2 black eyes?
Yes, imagine me giving that guy 2 black eyes. It's crazy. I remember laughing watching the photo in the paper the next day. I couldn't really believe that, but anyway, it was a really good night, and I think Craig was fighting the first goal, and I think Paul had a really good shot for the second one. And I mean, being part of the team that night and experiencing not the least how much that meant to people. It was now we know that it was the start of something really good, but I really felt that from that day on, I knew that we were onto something really, really good for the rest of the season, and it turned out to be really good.
Absolutely. I mean, when we look at Celtic players coming from overseas, Harald, sometimes, in particular, we've struggled with South American players adapting to the Scottish football style. However, a lot of the Scandinavian players come over and perform really well. Why do you think that is? I mean, are the games similar in style and speed?
I think when I played for Rosenborg, I was very used to us having the ball a lot and we were dictating the games. But that was even more. We had, I don't know the possession at that time, but we even had the more, and we were very much in charge of the games, much more in Scotland than we were back in Norway here. So that was a little bit of a surprise. But I think what you mentioned about Scandinavian players coming to Scotland, I think the mentality is quite the same. I'm still in contact with some of the players, and I've also been back to Glasgow a few times this year already, and I must say that I just find the culture and the mentality is so similar. I think that's also something that makes it very easy to adapt to the play as well, because whether you play in Scotland or you play in Italy or in Japan or wherever you play, the style of football, the way you play football is the same. But to make that team even better and maybe to reach the potential and get the potential out of the team, I think that's one of the reasons why we Scandinavians were so successful and still are, because the mentality is much the same. And I must say, I like the people in Scotland, and I like the people in Glasgow. Of course, I like the humor. I like there's so many similarities about being a Norwegian and a Glaswegian. So that made it easy, and that makes it easy still, I think.
Oh, excellent. Now, Wim Jansen came in. He had a different style, Harald, from some of our previous managers, but obviously it was very effective. When you look at him as a manager, what kind of approach did he have in respect of preparing the team for the games and in the changing room? Big matches like the game against Rangers, was he quite relaxed?
Yeah, I must say that's one of the things that separate the good managers from the great managers, and he was a great manager. Obviously, together with Murdo as well, because they were a really good team. They were filling out each other very good, and I think one of the reasons why I felt so comfortable and so at home when I came to Celtic, even from day one, was that at the Barrow field when we were practicing, everything was easy. Everything was the same. It was there was not so much for us to adapt to, and even coming into the big games like the Rangers game you're talking about on the 2nd of January, that was just another normal game for him. He didn't make much fuss about it, and the same was. I mean, we were coming down to the wire after 10 years. We're able to stop Rangers from winning 10 in a row in the last game of the season. That's really something as well. But the last week of training and practice was like any other week at the rest of the season. So he made it very easy for us to play. And I think that's, as I said, that's what separates good from great managers.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That season is obviously going down, Harold, in folklore at Celtic Football Club. And we were obsessed with winning the league that season, it's got to be said. And obviously you're telling me there that there's quite a relaxed atmosphere. And I think obviously that was the reason that Fergus McCann brought Wim Jansen in. You started scoring goals. You had a real purple patch. You were scoring for fun, including 4 goals against Kilmarnock. When the goals dried up, Harold, was there ever any doubt creeping into your mind? Or was Wim Jansen able to assist you in getting back into the goals after that?
Yeah, I think what I said earlier about getting back to practice and just do what we were regularly doing, I think that's it's a fine line, because you can push players to a certain point and then you will maybe only get 70% out of them. But if you push them correctly, you would get close to the 100%. And I think he was the one that could see every player and see what they needed. And there was never any pressure on me that season to score another goal, because I mean, as you mentioned, the game against Kilmarnock, 4 goals was tremendous for me, and I think I scored 2 in the next one. So I had a good spell that week. But I mean, I also know that I can have 10 chances in a practice and score none, and the next I will put away 9. So I knew that from the way we were practicing, that just continue to work hard and you will get rewarded at some point. And he let us, together with Murdo, they let us do what we were best at from the practice. And when you practice good during the week, the 5-6 days you practice, that makes it so much easier when you get to the game, because then the game is just basically another practice. Just the difference is 60,000 in the stands.
Oh, definitely. You ended up going to East End Park. Harold, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but Dunfermline is a twin town of Trondheim.
I know, yes. We had, I think we had, they had a goalie, Geir Karlsson. He played in Dunfermline back in the 60s, I think, or 70s. And he was also playing for Rosenborg for many years. So that's also why I know that Dunfermline is the friendly city of Trondheim.
Absolutely, and it would have been nice for yourself and your teammates to win that day, but obviously it wasn't to be. Could you tell me, leading up to a game like that, who are the influencers in the changing room? Who's the guys that lead that team?
Well, I think we haven't mentioned any players yet, but I would say starting with the local boys, Boydie and Jackie and Sid. There were we had Jonathan in goal, which had been there for a while as well. But I mean, then we're going on to the players that doesn't come from Glasgow. But we had Alan Stubbs. But I would also mention Craig and Paul in midfield. They brought something into the team, especially with Paul, because he was 100% professional all the time, and they were the guys I mentioned. They were able to push us, but also keep the stress level quite low. And we had Morten, of course. We had Mark. We had big Johan, and obviously, when you have a player like Henrik as well in your team, it makes it so much easier because he didn't have to say too much. He didn't have to speak too much because he was always speaking, getting onto the field. So he was kind of a leading star in that sense. But I mean, when I mentioned all these players, I mean, I could have mentioned more of them. Stefan Mahe, Enrico Anoni, we had Malcolm Mackay. I mean, there's Tommy Johnson, we had Darren. There's so many personalities in that team, and I think the mix of people in that team that season was instrumental for us to be able to make it in the end. But as you said, going to the second to last game and try to win it from that game was obviously difficult. But we tried, but didn't succeed. But we then knew that we had another shot at it the next week.
And as you say, Harald, you had 60,000 fans the following week to enjoy it with you. You looked like the coolest man in the stadium when you came onto the pitch and when you finished that through ball from Jackie. What were you feeling when you came on? What kind of words of advice did Wim Jansen give you?
I've seen some old footage, and Wim is doing he's doing some instructions to the field at that particular time. I'm standing with Murdo, and he obviously says something to me. I cannot remember what he said, but I know that actually from the previous games we played as well, I wasn't always starting. So for this game, when Sid was starting, I knew that my chance would come. But I mean, I could also have come on when the score was 4-0. So that could have then it wouldn't have meant so much. But coming on at that time, leading 1-0, I knew that I would, if I got the chance, I would be able to put it away. And I think that just comes from years of practice, and obviously, as I said about the managers, I mean, both Wim and Murdo were confident that we could do the job that was needed, and that was something I was used to from my time in Norway as well. So coming onto the pitch, I just soaked in the atmosphere, and I mean, if you think that being in the stand among 60,000 to see that game, I can tell you that running onto the pitch, I mean, part of that is just beyond words. It's such a great feeling to get onto the pitch. Just to be able to play with the green and white shirt is an honor, and being able to help the team in that way that day obviously meant so much. But I mean, I just did what I've done many years before and in many sessions. So scoring that goal was just obviously good for me, but I mean, it was more like a sigh of relief in the crowd as well, because then everyone knew that the first title in 10 years was taken.
Oh, absolutely. Did you keep your jersey from that game, Harald?
Yes, I did. I don't know where it's now, but it's somewhere in the house with so many other shirts, but I kept it, and I've got some gear, but not much. I also remember that I gave away my boots, and they're still in the museum at the park. So it's but as you started to say about the game and the season as such, it's I mean, we're 22 years on now, and we still talk about it as it was happening this year. So that tells me how much this means to everyone that was following the team that day, but also still follow the team, and now are looking on to maybe making 10 in a row on their own.
Well, this is a big thing, Harald, because obviously you were on the other side of it. You were the man who helped to stop the 10. You were part of that team. The smell the glove logo at the end of the game. There's been a lot of talk about that. And now we're entering into, we're in uncertainty at the moment, but once we get going again, we're going for 10 in a row ourselves, Harald. You're looking from afar. Do you think that Scottish football, anything within Scottish football, can stop Celtic from getting that 10 this time round?
No, I mean, the way things look now, we are so well prepared to get be able to get that 10 in a row. But I mean, I think I've said that before. It's much easier to stop 10 in a row than to get 10 in a row. So the way Rangers played for 9 years, winning 9 in a row is tremendous. And now within the Corona time as well, we have got 9 in a row. But still, there's one more year that we have to play well. And I think that's, if they could make that, it would just be, enormous. And that would be equally big as when we stopped 10 in a row. But it's something about human beings, not because it's so easy to be satisfied and full when you've done 8 or 9 but having the same hunger to get that 10 is really something as well. So I'm just looking so forward to get next season started, and I'm definitely going to come over a few times for the next season, definitely.
Brilliant. That's great to hear. Now, I mentioned Smell the Glove. Harald, are you prepared to tell us who was actually responsible for the Smell the Glove logo?
No, I'm not. I'm not sure actually. I wasn't familiar with that term, and I don't know really who brought that into daylight, so to speak. But no, I wouldn't know that. But it's that's also something for the history books, definitely.
It is, it's part of the story. The biggest disappointment, obviously, Harald, was a few days later, Wim Jansen resigns as a manager. How disappointed were you when you got news that Wim was leaving?
Well, to put it mildly, it was a shock. But I had, for my spell at Celtic, I had 4 managers. So that also tells you that the club was in a bit of a I wouldn't say uncertainty or insecure, but it was a time when the club, I think the club wanted to keep him, but obviously their minds were not thinking the same. So I think it was also a logical choice for Wim to resign, because he didn't get what he wanted for next season, and when he doesn't have the board's trust all the way, I find it natural for him to step down. But it's always interesting to see in hindsight what could next season have been if he could have continued to build on his team, because he obviously was able to. Because we must remember that some of the players that came to Celtic that year didn't come at the start of the season. We just came in at different stages, and there's only 5 months away from winning the league when I came. So he was able to play to put together a very good team in a very short time. So that's always something that I've been thinking about. What would the team have been like if we could have played the next 1 or 2 or 3 seasons with the same manager? That would have been really interesting to see. But we don't get to see that, so it's just speculations, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Dr. Joe Venglos came in at that point. Harald, how different was his style to Wim Jansen's?
Oh, he was much more methodical, and he was much more academical, I would say. He was one of those old school managers, which was I don't think the squad responded to him as they should. But that's also two-sided, because maybe he didn't give us what we wanted or needed. But he definitely knew a lot about football. So, but he took over a team that's just won the league and maybe was expecting to continue to work on what we had from before. So he was maybe a little bit unfair for him as well to come in and take the team. But I think he showed himself as a good manager as well. But unfortunately, we're not able to to build on what we had did the year before.
Mm-hmm. You'd played with some great players up to that point, Harald, and we've mentioned Henrik Larsson, but Joe Venglos brought in your countryman Vida Riseth, but he also brought in Lubo Moravcik, who has been described as something of a genius. What was the first impression you had of wee Lubo when he came in?
Yeah, I mean, I met Lubo a few times after this, my time at Celtic, and he is still the same guy because he is a playful guy. Obviously, a talent out of the ordinary for football, and he just came to Celtic Park and he just loved to play football, and I think that's what if you can give young players anything to aim for, it's to find that joy about football, because he was listening to what the manager said, but during a game he could do things that you wouldn't expect him to do because he was so good with the ball and he had his tactical skills were so good, and he was just playing football. He was equally as happy as if he had been out in the street playing at nighttime. So he just brought that joy, and that he took the nervousness down. He just played football, had fun, and I think that I think some of his teammates at that time could see that, okay, this is actually about having fun. And he was, he's a good friend as well, so it's always a pleasure to play with such players.
Yeah, and an absolute pleasure to watch him as well, Harald. I mean, when you look at the season under Joe Venglos, and obviously he was replaced by John Barnes, Joe Venglos brought in Marco Viduka, another striker, and then Barnes took over. You yourself, you had a 4.5-year contract. At what point did you start thinking that perhaps things weren't going to continue at Celtic Park? Was it maybe with the purchase of Viduka, or was it when John Barnes came in, Harald?
Well, I would say that the next summer, the summer of '99, then I knew that I hadn't been playing much, and I also saw that I was not probably going to be given too many chances for the next season either. So then I was starting to look for another club to go to, because I still was only 27, 28. Well, at that time I was 28. So I thought that I felt that I still had a few good years left in me. So I decided to move on to Copenhagen midwinter, just because I was expecting to play more there, and because at that stage I could obviously have been sitting through the contract, but that would have taken me beyond 30, and then I wouldn't have had too many games under my belt if the situation continued. So it was really, really sad leaving Celtic, because Celtic has been just so good to play for. But for my own sake, I had to move on. I wouldn't be happy to play reserves football for Celtic for many years.
No, absolutely. And after your spell at Copenhagen, you go back to Rosenborg, where it seems like a perfect fit for you, Harald. You become one of the greatest Norwegian goal scorers of all time. Most of the goals came for Rosenborg, and there's a memorable game for us in 2001 where you score a couple of goals against Martin O'Neill's Celtic. Now, was it mixed emotions at that point, or are you just so focused on the game in hand that you're doing your job for Rosenborg by that stage?
Yeah, I think you asked me earlier about how calm I was looking when I scored that goal at Celtic Park in '98. I think that's something that's been with me for my whole career, because when I play for Celtic, I score for Celtic and I do everything for Celtic. But when I was back in Norway again for Rosenborg, then I was giving my all best for Rosenborg again. So it's not only because, and I wouldn't say mixed emotions, because my professionality was with Rosenborg at that point. But I felt a little bit of that. I had a little bit of that feeling after the game, because then I met a few of the players in the next door dressing room, and that's a bit strange, because you've been playing with them for a long time, and you've made friends and everything. But so it's a bit strange to see them afterwards. But I also met them midsummer in Copenhagen. We played against them midsummer before the start of the season in 2000 as well. So it's a bit strange to see them, but when the game is on, then I play with 100% heart for the jersey I put on.
Oh, absolutely. Now, that team you played, Harald, that O'Neill was starting to assemble a very strong side that went on a year and a half later to the UEFA Cup final. Did you see the quality that night in Martin O'Neill's side? Chris Sutton, Moravcik, Hartson, etc.
Yeah, I must say, I think Martin was able to put together a good team, much the same way as Wim was able to do. And I don't know how long Martin was there, but he was there for quite a few years, and obviously culminating with the second place in the UEFA Cup is amazing. And we talk about the Lisbon Lions, of course, but I think that team as well deserves to be spoken about in the same way as the Lisbon Lions, because I think they made some groundbreaking work for Celtic, and also not to mention all the things they did for the same clubs at the same level as Celtic, because it shows that with hard work through a longer period of time, it is possible to achieve something, and that's something good to take away from that as well. Because if you look at some of the teams that Celtic played that year when they got to the final, they met a few good teams, and they got rid of so many good teams before ending up in the final. So it is possible, and I think that's what's taking all managers and all players to a next level if they are able to think like that. And obviously Martin had that mindset, but he was also able to pick players that could fulfill that mindset on the pitch for him.
Mm-hmm. One of the players, Harald, was one of your ex-teammates in Henrik Larsson, who went on with Barcelona to win the European Cup. As you know, you were on the bench the night he broke his leg against Lyon. It was a horrific leg break. Was there ever a doubt in your mind that Henrik Larsson would come back to his best after that injury?
No, never. I knew he was devastated about the leg break, but I mean, he was so professional, and he was so well at taking care of himself. So I was never in any doubt. But I mean, I wasn't sure how long it was going to take, and you would even think that Celtic was maybe looking into to see if he was going to be fit enough again to give him another contract as well. But I mean, he showed so much hard work and so much grit and determination through that period. So when he was finished with his recovery period, there was no doubt in my mind that he was going to be at his best again. And as you said, he's shown that for Celtic again. He did that for Helsingborg when he came back to Sweden, and then he went on to play for both Barcelona and United as well. So it shows that he's been in my view, he's the best player I've ever played with, and I've played with quite a few good players. So I will rank him as number one, definitely.
Oh, a lot of the fans would agree with you there, Harald. Final question for you. We've had so many heroes and legends down the years at Celtic, but very few have had a play written about them. However, Bend It Like Brattbakk has now been a very successful play in and around Glasgow. How did you get to know about this play, and are you hoping to come over at some point and see it live?
Definitely. I was speaking to Jim about that, and I met him actually in was it in January or February this year? I think it was in January, and I'm really honored to be mentioned in that way. I mean, obviously the play is not about me, but it's about the season, and I've heard everyone that's watched the play has nothing but good critics for the play. So I was just missing out the last time. So I was speaking to Jim, and I told him that for the next time it's going to be put up, I'm definitely going to be there, because that's something I need to see.
Absolutely. So next season you're coming back for Bend It Like Brattbakk in 10 in a row, and you'll be welcome back at Celtic Park at any point. Harald, it's been an absolute pleasure this evening. Thank you for joining us on A Celtic State of Mind.
Hail, hail.